Hey everybody, this is Kodak here, and a little over a month ago, we had our first Super Game Night. It was a 12-hour marathon of people showing off their prototypes and playing games and making friends. It was one of the last things I did before I had to prep for my location change in earnest, and seeing as my new place is still quite the work in progress, enjoy footage of that game night without context while I give a more opinionated video this time. A co-opinionated video, if you will. Want to know the context of these games? You're just gonna have to join the Patreon. Okay, so an unusual trend I often see people use as a selling point for a lot of products, usually entertainment products, is that they are XY but without X. It's a tie without the tying, a controller without the cable, a beer without the alcohol.
Well, that's the end of me.
But you get it. The idea is that it's a product that has had a part of it taken out that people might find frustrating. As is most commonly seen in the world of TCGs, it's trading card games, but without the trading. On the surface, this sounds like a great idea. No more randomness, no more rarity, no more cracking pack after pack looking for the cards you want, even though you can stop cracking packs anytime you want and flip to the secondary market to buy only the cards you need anytime you like! But you get it. The idea is that you can participate purely in the strategy and deck building without having to play the friggin' stock market. It seems like you're doing people a favor by eliminating this randomness, but in reality, the effects these decisions can have on your game are often more catastrophic. Like I said, it looks good on the surface, but it's exactly that, an inch deep. You can't just try to imitate the trappings of a trading card game with the trading part ripped out and hope to succeed. Let's take a look at a more straightforward example, Toys to Life, but without the toys. This was a trend towards the end of the genre's life where companies tried to spice up their Toys to Life game appeal by making the toys optional. Problem is, people will basically always try to enjoy an experience for the lowest price possible, and if there's a workaround to buying the toys, they will take it. I've already told the story about how infuriated my GameStop manager was when they learned that Ubisoft's Starlink lets you play the game without buying any of the toys by having a digital deluxe edition that cost less than the toy-driven starter. He was exasperated, wondering how the heck he was going to sell any of the toys since Ubisoft had undercut them with a cheaper option. Most of my own Starlink collection came from the dollar store, and I only need one more ship and one more pilot to 100% my collection. Another example was Lightseekers, a game with a big expensive central figure which was optional. It only unlocked an extra equip slot and a pair of skill trees, while a single pack of cards unlocked so much more. The toy was expensive, but making the game basically free without it was a death knell. Coming back to trading card games, by removing the trading element from the equation, you are removing a huge amount of your audience. You are erasing the collectible scene, the collaborative trading scene, and you're pretty brutally hamstringing the dabbler scene. Trading card games, when run properly, have a model that has a number of benefits. You have automatic community building, the secondary market, and flexible participation. Because certain cards are scarce and you only get a random assortment of cards in your boosters, it creates an inherent need for the missing cards, one that ideally is filled by other people in the same situation. This is where the trading part of trading card game comes from. Since this randomness and scarcity generates a need, a market will naturally develop around that need, supply and demand and all of that. This is the secondary market, where a card's value to other people can matter as much as its value to you. This enables a form of trading as well, but with a middleman in the form of cash. Now, I do know that this model has been recently abused, with lots of people sort of shoving this trading portion aside in favor of sensationalizing the hits that can be pulled from these packs, telling people to treat these like video game loot boxes, ignoring the trading scene in favor of cracking packs. I've called this behavior out multiple times already. It's something that developed thanks to the apocalypse, and I'm trying what I can to shake it off. Another thing that people forget about the TCG model is that you are able to participate in it at virtually any level you like. You could buy a deck and call it quits, buy by the card or by the box, buy 10,000 cards, or just one. Trading card games facilitate different levels of interest near effortlessly. Whether you have $5 or $500 to spend, there's a TCG product for you. The way you can collect things piecemeal, the fact that there's a huge gap between how much you pay as a casual player versus a competitive player, and the sliding gradient of skill level between them means there's a comfort zone for everybody. which includes collectors. Trading card games are trading cards after all, and a lot of people like building sets of cards and collecting rare variants rather than competing, but who also participate in the trading scene like anybody else, though often with a different set of priorities than competitive players, making a nice situation where people who prefer different flavors of jelly beans won't fight over the jar. Now, what happens when you take all of that away? Like I said, on the surface, an expandable card game, or XCG as they are often known now, this seems like a good idea, removing the randomness and the need to play the market, but the advantages and community that form around the model also fall away, along with a huge part of the gaming population. An inevitable fact when it comes to XCGs is that, due to a lack in recurrent spending, there's a need to maximize value per product to compensate, and so there is usually a pricier initial buy-in than TCGs, one which scares away a lot of dabblers. And since everyone is getting the same thing in every box, not much to appeal to collectors or resellers either. All that's left, really, is competitive, and they are very hard to satisfy. Competitive players are always looking for the next big thing, the cards that push the metagame forward, and if you don't constantly deliver, your already pretty small audience is going to dwindle to nothing pretty fast. This was a major factor in the fall of basically every competitive LCG and XCG. The bar didn't move enough to satisfy the competitive players. Add into that the fact that they would have to buy every product in its entirety rather than just the few cards they wanted, and it can feel oppressive very quickly. Warhammer Underworlds actually changed their business model due to this phenomenon. Warhammer Underworlds is an XCG miniatures game hybrid, but I feel it counts for example, so I'm gonna bring it up. It used to be that in order to get all of the cards, including the universal ones, you would have to buy every single army. But recently they changed it so that these universal cards are actually sold in a standalone product, so players didn't feel forced into buying every expensive squad that released. So, plain and simple, you can't just copy the TCG model without the T part and hope for the best. It's kind of impossible to copy the TCG experience without all the collecting and trading and dabbling that makes it such a vibrant space. So, what's the solution? Well, let's have a look at the still surviving LCGs for a possible answer. Now, all of Fantasy Flight's remaining games all have something in common. None of them are competitive. They are all cooperative. Arkham Horror, Lord of the Rings, and Marvel Champions are all games where players work together to conquer a scenario with their chosen superheroes, a sort of evolution of the system introduced by Sentinels of the Multiverse, a personal favorite of mine. But from here, things are sort of obvious, right? The new card packs aren't meta-pushing power packs, they are new scenarios and characters. Rather than new cards, the booster sets provide new experiences. And that's sort of our answer. XCGs, by their nature, cannot provide the TCG experience, so the goal should be to provide an experience that a TCG usually cannot, or is ill-suited for. I've already brought up cooperative play. Deck builders are also a popular format where booster sets affect all players equally, and there are the sorts of games like Vampire Rivals, ones with a lot of table politics, better suited to playing with people you know and trust rather than with complete strangers. Should I define my terms? Table politics is where the social interactions between players matter as much as the cards they play. You see this sort of thing in Monopoly, where people wheel and deal by exchanging properties and money. It's a game of predictions, alliance building, opportunity, and even betrayal. By contrast, trading card games want a sterile competitive scene and don't want the cards from different owners getting mixed together, meaning that these experiences are sort of out. I mean, games like Legend of the Five Rings, Vampire the Eternal Struggle, and Doomtown were TCGs that have their fans, but their table politics can prove a hindrance to those who aren't terribly sociable, and all three games have since reincarnated into XCGs, though Legend of the Five Rings didn't last very long due to stripping out a lot of its content. Of course, there's another conundrum. A lot of these games still want to host store events, but seeing as collecting isn't really a thing anymore since everyone gets full sets of everything by default, you can't really entice people with additional cards that they already have. Your population is basically all spikes, remember? They're only looking for a competitive edge. In this regard, I find things that ease play to be the most appealing prizes. Things like player dashboards, durable tokens, and dice. Starter box upgrades for the most part. I know my Warcry dice sorting trays see use. But I feel like I'm getting a little beside the point here. My central point is that so many people develop a TCG-like game with the intent of selling it as an XCG, thinking a TCG-like community will grow around it when that simply isn't the case. It's the most common mistake I've been seeing new designers make, next to using cards as pawns to move around on a table, which I honestly think is more a side effect of people creating and testing games in Tabletop Simulator than a sort of recent trend. Have fun moving all that stuff around in the real world where space is limited and nothing is magnetized. So yeah, those are my co-opinions on the idea of trading card games without the trading part. I hope I've made everything pretty clear here, and hopefully I'll be able to get back into making real videos real soon. I have a little more moving to do. I have, some sound testing to do. We're going to see how this audio comes out in this all wood floor location, but yeah, we'll get to see how that is. I am still going to the Shadowverse Evolved Road Tour event on the 12th in Pennsylvania at Alternate Universes, and it looks like I might also be able to squeeze in one of the events in Maryland. I think on the 15th. It's one that's well northeast of Baltimore that's actually pretty close to me. I think I'm going to squeeze into that one as well, so if you're in that area, feel free to say hello. Also, a big thanks to all of my patrons on here. This was, again, from the game day that we had on July 1st. I hope to do more of these in the future, although I would like it if we could get more of an audience together. Maybe I need to hype it more on here. Maybe I need to hype things more on other social media so that we have plenty of spectators and not just all the developers. I mean, it was great, but I would love it if we had, just a few more eyeballs on what was going on. So yeah, those are my thoughts on TCGs without the T, and until next time, this is Kodak signing off.